Hello, this is Adam from human-alchemy.healthcare. Now, I'm making this video to talk about COVID fatigue. What is COVID fatigue? A lot of people are experiencing burnout in their workplace and they're just experiencing fatigue, depression and burnout. So why is that? And it's not only COVID victims or long COVID sufferers that suffer from this, it happens everywhere in the workplace. So I'm going to discuss the neuroscience and neuroendocrinology and also a bit of the behavioural psychology behind it to hopefully shed some light on this phenomenon. So first of all, what is burnout? Burnout's where, like, after repeated stress with the absence of social support, you start to notice a lot of things that were interesting and were rewarding to you stop being rewarding, and you feel anxious, stressed, you get insomnia. It's demotivation, basically. That's fatigue and burnout. And you might have noticed times in your life where you feel demotivated, you have procrastination, you'd avoid things, hold things off, you'd be scared of things or anxious about certain things, right? Because a lot of people have immense courage, but not about certain things. And in toxic situations and especially with isolation, burnout becomes a real issue that can lead to health problems, cardiovascular illness. It can lead to obviously depression, can even lead to suicide and self-harm. So why the hell are we having so much of this at the moment? Because COVID, it's a lethal virus, but even people that don't have COVID are suffering from it. So from what I've read and sort of my research into the neuroendocrinology behind COVID and mental health and neuroscience. First of all, what is neuroendocrinology? So neuroendocrinology, it's a study of the hormones behind our endocrine system, hormones that interact with the body with epigenetics and they're basically hormones like oxytocin, like thyroid hormone, like testosterone. Well, testosterone's a gonad hormone, but basically it's a study of hormones, right? And hormones, there are hundreds of these neuropeptides, right? And then there are bioactive fragments of these peptides, which have massive effects on the cellular, massive cellular effects, massive system-wide effects. Anyway, getting back to burnout. So burnout happens when an activity is performed that induces stress, okay? And that leads to what is stress? Stress is it's multiple things, but it's primarily it's release of cortisol, but more importantly, corticotropin releasing hormone, CRH. Now, corticotropin releasing hormone, that's a bit of a woolly, it's a bit of a long word, right? So let's just call corticotropin releasing hormone stress for the purposes of this video. Okay, so when this hormone is released, how it leads to burnout, okay? Because when you feel stress, you don't necessarily feel burnt out, right? Stress can be exhilarating. Stress can drive high performance and response to certain stresses. But where it becomes burnout is when repeated stress, so corticotropin releasing hormone, happens over a prolonged period of time, okay, which then the neuroendocrinology behind it, it sort of up-regulates something called dynorphin, okay? So dynorphin, what the hell is that? That is another neuropeptide, and that's a neuropeptide that's it's very dine, it means king. It's the king hormone, right? I call it the depression hormone or the death hormone even. I call it the death hormone mostly because when you're under stressful situations and you have repeated trauma physically and mentally, which cause, let's say, well, let's call it damage to your body, right? Either from stress or physical trauma. Dynorphin comes in as a neuropeptide which activates opioid receptors. It primarily activates so dynorphin. Well, what is dynorphin? It's you can see how complicated it is, right? So prodynorphin is the precursor to dynorphin, right? And that's encoded by a gene called p-dyne, the prodynorphin, right? And p-dyne is upregulated from this corticotropin releasing hormone, and it's downregulated by oxytocin, the social hormone, right? And then with my research on the oxytocin dynorphin axis, it elucidates that link between oxytocin and dynorphin more. So, but for the purposes of this video, dynorphin, it basically dulls the senses and demotivates. So when an opioid receptors activated, the sensory signals linked to that neural network, let's say, are sort of dulled. That's why you take morphine, a potent opioid, as a painkiller, because it activates all the opioid receptors and sort of like dulls your senses, makes you feel sort of high, or like you don't feel pain basically, right? And you don't feel worried, stressed. It's kind of like pleasure in a sort of opiate way, right? Because it's not really pleasure. It's not like something exciting. It's more like a relief, right? And endorphins that are released from, I think beta endorphin, there's a whole load of endorphins that are released from like exercise and doing fun stuff. They activate opioid receptors, but acutely to like dull pain or senses, but also to make you feel good, right? Anyway, so this dynorphin is released after stress, and it accumulates, right? So, and then the activities that you're doing basically become less rewarding, and you switch a mental state because of this dynorphin. It activates more anxiety and sort of like aversion parts of the brain, right? Which have huge effects. And one of the ways it does this is by, what dynorphin does is it reduces oxytocin, because oxytocin, it's the social hormone. It's what you get from social interactions and parties or sex or romantic relationships. It's the thing that makes life worth living, oxytocin, kind of, right? Because if you didn't have any oxytocin, you'd be a bit sort of like socially unplugged. You'd be a bit more, let's say, kind of robotic. It's like an empathyless way of living without oxytocin. It's linked to like psychopathy and various other things. And you get it, like if you ever had a breakup and you feel terrible, that's basically it's like an addiction withdrawal precipitated by an absence of oxytocin that you'd get from your romantic partner. So you've got a neural network of clusters linked to your romantic partner that's craving oxytocin to like dampen those neural network circuits that causes a lot of trauma. Why it takes so long to get over exes. Anyway, so what oxytocin does is it in social situations or situations where there's a societal relevance, it's co-released alongside corticotropin releasing hormone, stress, right? And it stops the activation of dynorphin. Okay, so repeated stress over time, let's say 3 months or a year that you get with, we've had with COVID, right? We've had lockdown, isolation, all this stress for over a year now. Was it a year? Well, basically, it's been a long time, right? And you notice with isolation, the social isolation imposed to like stop the spread of COVID, okay, good intent, it has a side effect of limiting social interaction, right? And all that social interaction, day-to-day functioning, right, reduces our oxytocin significantly, like hugely, right? Plus, being indoors, okay, right, behind glass that repels, that stops UVB light getting in, ultraviolet B light, so it's like light of 310 nanometers approx, prevents us getting vitamin D, okay? Plus we wear clothes, some of us have dark skin, and some of us live in places with dark winters, right? So winter is especially bad for vitamin D. And vitamin D, this is kind of like new like research. Vitamin D basically, vitamin D itself regulates calcium, okay? But vitamin D also has an effect of activating oxytocin networks in our skin, in our hypothalamus, in our brain circuits, and well, throughout our body basically. And without vitamin D, our oxytocin system's suppressed. That's why all this COVID burnout and fatigue happens so much in winter, and that's probably why, like, places where people stay indoors, or there's cold winters, or like people with dark skin suffer more from COVID. It's why all those things make COVID worse. Okay, so if we have no social life or reduced social life, okay, plus we've got no vitamin D, because you can take it as a supplement, but it won't reach the pituitary and your hypothalamus in required quantities, because UVB light generates vitamin D through the retina, and it's that retinal vitamin D that goes to your olfactory lobe, goes to your pituitary gland, your hypothalamus, and that really sort of deals with stress, right? Because it activates the oxytocin network, okay? So putting that together, basically we're experiencing all this fatigue and burnout from COVID, but also from the mitigation methods for COVID, right? And it's really making our mental health suffer, because without oxytocin, all the stresses we face in life become too much to bear. They literally become too much to bear by having stress upregulate dynorphin, okay, which then demotivates you from doing that activity, right? And also, like, it reduces your let's say it switches your sort of focus in life, right? You kind of, your consciousness, right? It switches your mindset to survival mode. Like some people say abundance and scarcity, right? Basically it's fight or flight that it triggers, right? This dynorphin stuff. That's why people who have trauma and like PTSD, anxiety, depression, they all have high levels of this dynorphin. And you get it from like terrible situations like abuse and war and like stressful situations. So if now that we know about the basic neuroendocrinology behind this, and I've written, or by the time of this video you've watched it, will have written writings on this on my website on human-alchemy.healthcare, talking about this oxytocin dynorphin neuroendocrine framework, right? So it's basically like some cutting edge neuroscience behind these sort of fatigue and burnout things. But also, now that we know about it, that all this burnout's because of reduced oxytocin, social life, isolation, and stressful situations, and low vitamin D, we now know how to counter it, okay? Because oxytocin, you get that from bonding in person, with your bubble group, or with your cat, your dog, or at distance. You get it from like singing, you get it from romantic relationships, you get it from sex. And dating's really suffered from this COVID situation, because you can't meet people, you can't make new friends, because you can't trust someone until you've met them or talk to them, and it's a really tricky situation. But also, now that we'll be coming out of lockdown in the UK potentially in March, we need to make the most of it and get as much sunlight as we can, okay? Because sunlight is key. If you've got dark skin, and you live in the northern hemisphere, honestly it's not enough, because the melanin blocks the vitamin D synthesis in the skin. Okay, you can still get it for your eye, and it's it's not too bad, but for your eye, okay. And vitamin D through your eye is literally like, it's extremely important, because it basically activates the oxytocin in your mind so that you can feel good and comfortable and socially vibe and think have a long-term mindset, right? And like pigmentation of the eye, okay, you can have brown eyes, you can have blue eyes, green eyes, I think it's very sensitive. So even if you get a small bit of UVB light going through your eye, that's kind of enough, as long as you get some, right? And if you stay indoors with winter and like you don't have any sort of source of UVB, because normal lights emit light in a visible electromagnetic spectrum, or infrared at most, heat. And the supplements you can take, like everyone should be taking vitamin D supplements, but it won't get to the periphery. It won't get to like the surface of the skin in enough concentration. It won't get to the clusters of dense neurons, of oxytocin neurons in the brain in enough concentration. It will get to your body, and it will have a positive effect. It's just we need that UVB light as well. And something I'm exploring is like a topical applied vitamin D. But to be honest, you can get it from UVB light in low concentrations that prevent tanning. Okay, so it doesn't really damage your skin. It inoculates your skin in the sense of like stimulating vitamin D production to activate your oxytocin. Okay, and you can also get oxytocin. We talked about vitamin D, but you can also get oxytocin from things like massage. You get it from talking on the phone. You can get it from singing, so joining a choir, or I don't know, singing shanties. And you can also get it as an intranasal supplement. Now, I had ADHD, so I had severe oxytocin sort of low levels, let's say. And men have lower levels of oxytocin than women, because testosterone suppresses oxytocin, whereas estrogen sort of activates oxytocin, or it kind of like positively modulates it. And in the menstrual cycle, you've got low cycles of low mood, because you don't have estrogen to activate your oxytocin. And there's like that's a whole another video. And you can take oxytocin as a supplement, because our levels are so low now with isolation that it's just getting obscene. And oxytocin is it's probably one of the most powerful immune system enhancing neuropeptides there is, because it's like evolutionary. It signals to the body, I'm around people, I have oxytocin, okay? Therefore, I need to protect myself versus other people, as well as interact with people in a positive way. So to protect myself from other people, or the things people bring, such as viruses, disease, bacteria, your body activates your immune system with T cells and interferon gamma and a whole cluster of antiviral mechanisms. So it's very powerful. And how to reduce stress? Stress exists. Okay, you can remove yourself from toxic situations and sort of de-stress, sort of simplify your life. But ultimately, it's oxytocin that stops the stress developing into burnout, right? So that's why it's so important to have family and friends and romantic partners, and have a position in society, be socialized. And if you can't do any of that because of isolation, you can get a pet, you can well, when lockdown ends, you can get massages, you can make sure your vitamin D is sorted out. Oh, and also serotonin levels are linked to oxytocin. So if you have low serotonin, it sort of dampens your oxytocin network through the 5-HT1A autoreceptor. So you might have heard about ecstasy and how it releases serotonin. It's the serotonin released that activates the oxytocin network to give you that sort of social empathy vibe. So your serotonin levels, you're sort of talking about John Peterson and lobsters. Your serotonin is like a set point of your dominance position in the hierarchy. So you can only really be charismatic and like fully talkative and confident if you have high serotonin, because it fully de-inhibits the oxytocin network to allow you to speak and communicate and read people and do like high level social behaviors. And if you don't have serotonin, you can read people a bit, but it's more like a submissive, like danger protection type situation or supplication. But anyway, that's a whole load of stuff. So this whole video is about fatigue, sort of burnout, and how we can counter it through oxytocin. So, and it's been quite sort of broad spanning, and there's a lot of new words there. So I'll be making more videos on these topics and expanding more, explaining more of the thought and the science behind these, and the studies linked to it. And if you're interested, you should check my website out. So it's human-alchemy.healthcare. Links below in this video. And you can start to read some of the science behind it if you're interested. You can explore some therapeutic options to boost your oxytocin and reduce your dynorphin, to really help you sort of to really help counter the sort of negative effects of this whole this whole COVID situation, and reduce trauma, reduce scarcity, shift to a healthier mindset, and boost your immune system, and a lot of good stuff. So this is my first ever video for human-alchemy.healthcare. So I'll be doing a lot more on the topic, and I'll leave it at that. So thanks for listening, and share your comments below, and I'll do my best to respond to them, and link science or explain things a bit more, or do follow-up videos. So thank you.